Good morning or afternoon, depending on your location. My name is Dr. Nadine Bitar Chahine, and I'm joined with Dr. Abir Al-Tayyib. We both work in Baladiya Catalyst, a think tank that works on research projects for sustainable urban development in the West Asia and North Africa region, bringing our expertise into public and private sector projects across the GCC and beyond. This presentation, titled The United Arab Emirates Planning System, Laws, Institution, and the Current Logics of Urban Development, is structured in 7 short sections. First, setting the UAE institutional and political background, providing an overview of comparative planning system to establish a disciplinary scope and position the UAE across planning families. We'll then move to the main urban regulation we use, delve into the resulting planning system, and derive its key dimension. I will also provide insights from Dubai, the founding of the Dubai Development Authority, and I will conclude with some of my own synthesis of future development direction, including place-based one, which I advocate for, as well as Abir, in our work through regional and global channels. The UAE political system is best described as a federal presidential elected monarchy, where the rulers of the 7 emirates collectively from the Federal Supreme Council, the FSC, the highest constitutional authority. The FSC sets general policy, sanctions legislation, and elects the president and the vice president from among its members. The constitution is made permanent in 1996, established the government structure with its executive, legislative, and judicial branches. As well as the Federal National Council, who has 40 seats, there are also some local governments that are also operating in the UAE. One of the defining features of the UAE is its strong autonomy, where each emirate has retained its control over its natural rights as well as its own revenues. In fact, in the UAE, the Federal National Council operates through electoral colleges. Of course, the discovery of oil in 1958 has fundamentally changed the UAE political economy, accelerating its institutional development, and also reinforcing its decentralized governments as each emirate evolved in its own administrative structure over its own pace. From an opening framing to put things in context for an international audience, when we compare national planning systems, some of the most influential strands of scholarship argues that planning culture shape how governments regulate land, negotiate development, balance public interest, but also respect private initiatives. And these actually debates cluster planning systems into 3 broad families: regulatory, discretionary, and hybrid. The regulatory is mostly a plan-led system. It's characterized by strict adherence to statutory planning, zoning ordinance, and codified rules. Their core promise is predictability. Development outcomes should be knowable in advance because the rules are stable, legible, legally enforceable. Of course, France and Germany are classic examples. By contrast, discretionary systems, they rely on the exercise of professional judgment. Here, planners mediate and negotiate between intent, site-specific conditions, and development viability. Decisions are really negotiated, over-informed by precedent, and shaped by the planner's interpretive role. The UK, Australia, and New Zealand are part of that model, where the planning officer report is as important as the written plan or the plan. Yet, as the literature recognizes, most systems are neither purely regulatory nor purely discretionary. In fact, hybrid systems combine both logics. In a different procedural and government levels, they differ in terms of their decision points. Therefore, even important regulatory systems often incorporate discretionary mechanisms, and that discretionary mechanism happen at the permitting stage, allowing sometimes case-by-case exceptions while maintaining the appearance of rule-based certainty. But also it could be for other strategic and economic reasons. As we talk about the comparative planning system and positioning of UAE, the UAE's planning system is formally regulatory. grounded in national legislation, emirate-level statutes, master plans, and detailed building codes that cascade from the national scale to the emirate scale to the municipal scale. Together, they produce what analysts describe an investment, responsive, agile planning environment. It is designed to support, to attract, and expedite capital-intensive development. And this responsiveness is not laissez-faire. Actually, it is state-coordinated. Also, there is flexibility here to enable commercially viable designs and accelerate approval for high-value projects. There is another layer of complexity because we have planning practices across different zones that come with their own standards and permitting pathways, depending on the vision of that zone. As such, Dubai, in a way, exemplifies a dual system, one that has codified regulation on the one hand and bespoke institutional framework, especially when it comes to mega projects that are of large scale. In terms of urban regulation, at the national level, the UAE introduced the Policy of Urbanization Decree Administrative Classification in October 2023. Its core purpose is to establish a unified national definition of functional urban areas, of cities, of rural areas, ensuring that all emirates operate within a consistent planning terminology and classification logic. And that will enable, of course, better global reporting. The policy also aligns UAE definition with internationally recognized delineation standards, enabling the country to produce statistical information that is comparable not only across borders, but also compatible with global data sets. It also strengthens the evidence base for planning and development. It supports monitoring progress towards sustainable development goals by standardizing how we size population, how we size density, how we calculate service distribution, and eliminate area boundaries. As a result, it aims to enhance the quality and reliability of data and used by decision makers, ultimately improving the UAE robustness of evidence-based planning and also predictive analytics for these plans. At the Emirates level, each jurisdiction has developed its planning and regulatory framework that reflects its local priorities while contributing to its national outlook. As the capital, Abu Dhabi anchors its planning around the economic vision of 2030, which promotes economic, environmental, and social development under the oversight of the Department of Municipality and Transport, DMT. The Abu Dhabi Urban Planning Council, created by Law Number 23/2007, has served as the expert authority behind Plan Abu Dhabi 2030 and is now closely part of the DMT. Dubai and Ras Al Khaimah illustrate complementary approaches, whereas Dubai planning system is shaped by really respecting the real estate and large-scale projects that the Dubai 2040 plan has integrated within an Emirate framework and reinforced through Law Number 16/2023 and the Supreme Committee of Planning that was established in 2024. For Ras Al Khaimah, it advances its 2030 Vision Development Strategy and Law Number 2 released in 2021, controlling land use changes and building permitting. Across the Northern Emirates, Sharjah regulates its planning sector under Law Number 3/2014, adding to the legacy of the Sharjah Urban Planning Council. Ajman advances its Vision 2030 and applies Law Number 2/2020-2025, especially for real estate development, with Administrative Decision Number 5 in 2006 to control construction conditions and standards. Both Al Quwain and Fujairah follow similar trajectories. In fact, Al Quwain Vision 2033 and Law Number 2, released in 2007, establishing its Department of Urban Planning to oversee the plans, while Fujairah 2040 plan continues to guide the development under the municipal leadership based on the Decree Number 5, released in 1981. As we can see, the UAE land control is characterized by highly decentralization, where each emirate maintains its own land administrative institutional procedure and legal framework. Of course, this decentralization produces significant variation in registration and capacity across the seven emirates, benefiting from complementarity. Nationals benefit from strong tenure security, and the expatriates have good access to land primarily through long-term leasehold or freehold ownership in investment zones, depending on the emirate level legislation in terms of its coverage and size. Land information system between the Emirates need to be more complementarity. There are variable degrees of digitization and interoperability, and public access to land depends on the sophistication of the data sets that exist and also on the open data standards of each Emirates. Land valuation practices depend on availability of data that differs from an emirate to an emirate. And of course, market forces play a major role in that. When it comes to rapid urbanization that was driven by the presence of oil, we also need to talk about social diversification, as population growth has been defined by the influx of migrants. The UAE physical and spatial transformation has been punctuated by these two trends and forces. This expansion has required emirate-level authority to rely on zoning regulations, detailed master planning guidelines, and detailed development control and processes to manage large-scale land conversion and also to manage the private sector interest in these land conversions. Processes often include multiple approvals from municipal departments to planning authority to hybrid actors that act as quasi-public entities with significant influence over land banking, infrastructure provision, zoning, and project phasing. Of course, the environmental constraints strongly shape the planning priorities, especially with the new laws released in the UAE. The UAE, in fact, faces a harsh climate, fragile ecosystem, and groundwater shortage, with a special attention that needs to be paid to vegetation, to dunes, water, coastal degradation, to industrial land use management, and biodiversity. These conditions create a set of challenges that will influence on the long run the Emirates. And also, when it comes to economic transformation, three elements remain very important in addition to climate resilience. These three elements relate to housing affordability, transit integration into transit-oriented development, but also thinking about the last mile, walkability, and human-centric urban design. Planning tools such as zoning, plot ratio, setbacks, and building height limits steer development outcomes. Housing policy distinguish between nationals who receive government-provided housing and large plots and expatriates who rely on private sector supply. This creates, of course, challenges for land use efficiency. Industrial development includes sectors that usually have cement, ceramics, and activities within free economic zone, all of which have environmental controls which were introduced between 2008 and 2015. Of course, the private transportation share of the transportation systems remain high. However, public transport expansion and transit system are underway in most of the Emirates, especially that some of the Emirates, because of their tourism frameworks, are focusing on low congestion as one of the driving demand factors for tourists. Permitting and building codes in the UAE are managed by municipality, which usually issue building permits, of course, based on detailed technical specification for the building and the structures. A unified building code is guiding these requirements, and several non-statutory rating systems, especially Istidama, are very important to support the sustainability goals of the Abu Dhabi and the performance standards of the plan submitted. The overall institutional landscape includes a range of ministry and authority: the Ministry of Environment and Water, the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, and the Department of Transport and the municipality. They all work along free economic zone and large private developers within their boundaries. if we want to talk about the modern planning principles, they consist of 5 main elements: density and how we can control physical growth, how we can improve compact development, and how we can optimize the productive use of land infrastructure. Diversity is also very important because of co-location and mixed use to integrate residential, commercial, and service clusters. How we can design for high quality, especially when we talk about the public space and public realm, the shading and walkability aspects of our connected landscape spaces, cycling architectural identity. Improving walkability across multimodal network is very important, especially for the last mile connectivity with transport system. And the biggest low-hanging fruit remains the transit-oriented development in terms of solving for climate response, for placemaking needs, and also for social inclusion. I will now focus mainly on Dubai. And if you allow me, I'm going to take you through how we can understand Dubai management and development. Scale 1, and this is very important, that Dubai has a governor that acts as a central reference point for decision making. Of course, the Executive Council is the executive arm of the governor in terms of making sure that the systems are integrated: infrastructure systems, transport system, land use system, but also planning system. These systems, once they are set out through the Urban Planning Supreme Committee, then the free zones and the Dubai municipality, they work on creating the regulatory landscape that will allow these plans to happen. This could be by their own planning rules. For example, in some free zones, these plannings have been taking care of the preliminary master plan stage. Or it could be through their land bank management, especially, for example, for Emaar, Nakheel, and Dubai Holding. They actually have development review processes that happen before the municipality stage. On the public-private side, similarly, the boundaries between the private and the public sector are complementary to each other. So some entities operate with significant financial resources, and therefore decision-making that is based on evidence becomes very important. In a way, planning becomes entrepreneurial, more agile, oriented towards risk sharing to attract investment and produce high quality design. Of course, we cannot talk about Dubai without talking about branding. And in a globalized approach that is adopted to local context, combining space with spectacle is important for the economy. So some projects really are about branding, iconic buildings, and global visibility to attract international capital and also to attract a certain caliber of investors, SME, and residents. In a way, Dubai model blends entrepreneurial, state-led control, we can say even process management and international expertise, creating a very distinctive planning system that is built around economic transformation that is spatially led. In terms of morphology, Dubai mega projects are defined by really very important signature icons, such as the Burj Khalifa for Dubai downtown, and by theming seen in projects such as Palm Island and the World Island. And in that aspect, these mega projects, they are very in connectivity, whereas Dubai Marina is highly integrated with the transport system. Palm Jabal Ali is now trying to connect its internal circulation to the metro. Of course, there are some characteristics that some of these projects are broken down into smaller sub-projects in order to ensure flexibility, testing, and risk management. And these sub-projects might have, in certain aspects, their own urban design and landscape guidelines. I would like to move to discuss the Dubai Development Authority. And it's a good example of when it's launched in 2000 as a specialized body responsible for planning, development control, and business licensing within a specific area under its jurisdiction. It oversees master planning approval, design review, permitting, and compliance with planning regulation. In 2024, the Dubai Land Department and the DDA signed a cooperation agreement to strengthen alignment on strategic objectives of the Emirate, reinforcing the DDA role as a key institutional actor in shaping Dubai's spatial and economic development. The DDA master planning role controls most of the master planning activities within its boundary: review and approval of marine master plan, sign-off sheets, and final master plan. It also issues site plans, manages master plan modification, and maintains GIS-based data. Its design role also includes detailed design review to ensure places meet standards for built form, placemaking, sustainability, and contextual integration. Its guidelines emphasize human-scale environment, multimodal connectivity, and high-quality public realm. These all functions serve the public interest by ensuring development aligns with Dubai's strategic objectives, including, and this is very important, livability, infrastructure coordination, and long-term sustainability, but also reinforcing a sense of place through contextual and landscape-sensitive design to ensure that communities are developed for the communities. I end with two things. First, as planner, we often emphasize smart, low-carbon, human-centered urbanism, compact development, integrated mobility, sustainable urban development, and place-based approaches. Second, through my own practice, Baladiya Catalyst, we will be investigating as a think tank to support and empower municipalities and actors across the WANA region, West Asia and North Africa, in order to champion place-based approaches that will enable us to advance planning system that supports community, place capacity, and partnership. Thank you very much.